I definitely fall short of that. I get on the Stairmaster regularly and have some golden calves, if you know what I mean. You know.
I do not know.
Okay.
Don't turn off. Please don't turn off the podcast. And he found out that his entire identity was wrapped up in this game that he played. And what a terrible identity. If your identity is something can be taken away, that's an idol.
And I think it's really anything that if the thought of losing that would mean that your life feels meaningless, then maybe we have it in a position where it shouldn't be.
But he's sitting there saying that whenever you're putting anything, even something that is good, over me, that it's not going to work out well for you.
Hello and welcome to the Sunday Huddle. As always, very grateful to be sponsored by Sports World Ministries. They make this all possible. And as always, joined by Mr. Brian Hasley. Brian, how are we doing today?
Wonderful.
It is so good to have you here. And our resident pastor, Nathan Moore. How are you doing, Nathan?
I'm doing great today.
Good to have you
I'm doing
on.
great. We've been watching, as a pastor, you're supposed to. We've been watching Prince of Egypt a lot in my house.
I think you're required to. That's good.
Yeah, and the soundtrack is awesome.
Yeah.
But I was talking with my my oldest, my 5-year-old, about the different plagues and stuff like that,
Yeah.
and how they were actually about false gods and stuff to counter some of these. And then we happened to read also that night in his Bible, we were reading the story about the golden calf. We were talking about the story of the golden calf, and then true story. The next morning, my son came in my room early to wake me up. And my phone sits on. I have a wireless charger, so it's up on this little thing. And he asked why that was on there. And I told him the charges and everything, and he said it's almost like one of those golden things like the Israelites worshipped. I said, what are you talking about? And he said it's sitting on a thing like they did with their idol. And I don't think he realized how deep he really was being with that. I was like, oh my goodness. Yeah, I mean.
Your son is brilliant. What a great message. Did you take up an offering afterwards or no?
Yeah.
Sure?
And I sold my phone immediately.
What a great observation. So first of all, what a brilliant son you have. We knew that. Prince of Egypt, pretty good. Did you give it a thumbs up?
Obviously.
Are you asking
Yes.
you've never seen it?
I've never seen Prince of Egypt.
Oh my
I haven't.
goodness.
Well, I mean, y'all do fictional kind of thing. I just read the Bible is what I do.
Nathan, deliver us from this.
Good.
It's a reference. You would understand it.
You
I
wouldn't.
I would not understand it as a matter of
Man,
fact.
we thought you were saved. Okay.
No, I was. So idols, son was able to recognize. You're right. What a great.
Val Kilmer is Moses, literally.
Everyone is in that movie. I'm serious. You should look it up.
Oh my gosh.
Every-
yeah, good.
Everyone who's
Whitney
anyone.
Houston's got pipes. Mariah Carey too, if you look at. Anyways,
I haven't seen Prince of Egypt. I've seen it.
you
Yeah.
disgust me.
Yep. Well,
But
it sounds like me, as we talk about idols, that you both have false idols in your life. I read the Word of God, and that's where I get my truth from, not from a movie.
As it says, it's based on the Bible, just like the recent Noah movie with Russell Crowe. Almost, don't see it. I'm kidding. It's actually
That was on. I saw it the other day. It was on. I didn't watch the whole movie, but I saw 30 seconds, and there was he was, I don't know, invoking the power of the trees or something, and they were helping carry stuff.
yes, it's definitely not biblically.
So
based.
we're going to make it contemporary. We're talking about idols, and honestly, this golden calf. What in the world? How that can be contextualized today? How does this seems kind of out of place? Talking about idols seems out of place when we look at what was the reference to idolatry, at least the example you gave. It doesn't seem really in place. Where's that applicable today, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right that we think about the literal if I have an idol, I have a little golden statue
Right.
or big golden statue or just something
Yeah.
little a thing that I'm worshiping in my house. Well, first of all, if that is where you find yourself, then that is a big issue.
That is true.
We want to talk with you about that.
Yeah.
But I think it's deeper than that, right? It is we then now kind of the more common way or the more contemporary way that we struggle with that is an idol will be anything that we place our trust in over God. So it doesn't have to be a little physical thing, but it is anything in which I'm placing my trust in over God. So I think about things like my identity, the things I love, my obedience, my hope, all that stuff is found in maybe something else and not in God.
Yeah, so it was actual physical things. It was both, actually, in the Old Testament, obviously, right? There was these things
for
that were
sure,
wrong.
yeah.
But Exodus 24 through 5, you shall not make yourself a carved image. You shall not bow down to them or serve them. Worship created things instead of a creator is forbidden. So that thing can be contextualized to them. It was this carved image that they shouldn't. And we still prohibit that today.
Right.
We shouldn't have images that we make and we worship or adore them or give reverence to them.
I definitely fall short of that. I get on the Stairmaster regularly and have some golden calves, if you know what I mean. You know.
I don't know. I do not know.
Okay.
Don't turn off. Please don't turn off the podcast. That was a terrible setup and a terrible joke. Like I thought I could add some weight to it. But it was
Thank you. You should also see my glutes. But I do want to say that something that is innocuous as working out can be an idol.
Same.
When we look at modern day idols,
Yeah.
obviously you mentioned the phone. We look at the old idols and we think, oh man, there's no way we could be so dumb. Fitness is one. Sometimes church can be one. Sometimes your family can be one. Sometimes things that have really good meaning can all of a sudden be something that we end up worshiping, whether on purpose and intentionally or inadvertently. And you started in verse 4, but verse 3 is the important one. You should have no other gods before me. You should not make for me the carved image is exactly where it goes. And we have to make sure that God takes his priority and position where we need to have him as first in our life.
And we're called to, indeed, in 1 John it says we're to flee from it. We're to flee from idolatry. This is something that should not be something that's at the front of us and before us, and we pursue.
Yeah, and I think Brian gives us a good explanation there of it's not always bad things.
Yeah.
Right. Idols can be really, you mentioned like church and even like being in ministry or whatever, those things can become idols when it's anything that I'm finding my like hope and happiness and all these things like tied to this thing. And we'll probably talk in a little bit about how we like identify that. But I think of like modern idols that a lot of times people have that are not bad things, but can easily become idols for us are things like my pursuit of approval, of success, of like comfort, of relationships, maybe like even like beauty standards or whatever, of money or my own like personal image, family. Those things can all become idols. And it's not saying that those things are bad, but it's saying that even like good things, God-given things, make really bad gods.
The problem is because when does it go from good to becoming an idol? And the line is very fine, right? It seems like to me, so money and wealth, I mean, the pursuit of those things as the end is a sin. It's a sin and wrong. But having nice things and possessing nice things, so long as those nice things don't possess you,
right,
is permitted by the scriptures. But where's the line for us, right? The person that has too much is always the person that has just a little bit more than I do.
Oh yeah,
that's the one you can't have. That car's too nice because it's just a little bit nicer than mine, right? So it's not. Here's the problem. What may be a level of wealth for Brian Hasley, and he's the one that's the business guy and has all the money.
He tells us.
He does. It opens up every single podcast with a daily. Hey, I'm better than you guys because I have more money.
When I got in my car today, he said, "Poor."
It saved me. I thought that was so rude. But here's the thing. This is what's wrong with this, or hard for this, is because what's too much money for you may not be too much money for me, because for you it might be an idol. For me, it's not. So it's not the amount. And so we think it's this accumulated, when you enter a certain amount, when you get a certain amount, then that's the sin. But that's not what the scriptures say, actually.
Right. I mean, obviously for that, like you said, the pursuit, but the same thing when we talk about stewarding God's wealth, and that's what you should do if you are looking for money. It's crazy whenever you actually are following some of the aspects of the Bible, being a hard worker and taking care of people, that sometimes there is a monetary financial reward in that does lead to some successful aspects from an entrepreneurial standpoint, which is really good. But you have to be reminded that we are stewarding God's resources, that they're not ours. So if the pursuit is taking care of myself and replacing God with my own finances, well, obviously that is having a God before God. We're no longer relying on God, but on our own skill set. And so that's when we would take things too far, is whenever we're trying to essentially cut God out.
But it would be nice for there to be a single clean line. If you make over this amount a year, that's too much.
Tax the rich, eat the rich.
But you know what I'm saying? But it's not that way. The Bible says that we can be poor,
right,
and still be filled with materialism and wealth, pursuit of wealth, because it's not something we possess, but it's something we pursue with all of our heart. And God would forbid that. He would say that that's a sin for us to do that.
Yeah, and I think it's really anything that, if the thought of losing that would mean that your life feels meaningless, then maybe we have it in a position where it shouldn't be. If, like, again, that can even be good things. If the thought of that going away makes me think, man, I no longer have purpose or meaning in life, well, then maybe I'm holding that up too high. And I think what happens is those things start to enslave us. I think idols start to enslave. If I have the idol of approval, then it makes me, man, I am just, everything I do, I am desperate for people to like me. That's all I care about.
I had a guy who I played, who ministered with a little while. He played ball with the Seattle Seahawks, and he said that he grew up without a father, and he said that he loved football because he had a coach that followed him through junior high and high school that cared for him and showed him special attention because he was a very good football player. And he said, but the thing is that when I played a good game, he affirmed me and encouraged me. But whenever I played had a bad play, he would berate me. And he said his vision of who God was through this coach who he saw as a father figure. And he found out that his entire identity was wrapped up in this game that he played. And what a terrible identity, if your identity is something can be taken away and you lose your identity from, that's an idol.
Right.
That's something, the thing that really makes us who we are is something that will never be taken away.
Right.
And that's that we're children of God.
Right. And so another aspect, so we talk about sports and stuff and your accomplishments and accolades as a part of your identity. Another thing that is something that is beneficial and God created to be good is marriage and children. And people can easily make their spouses or their kids idols that they worship. Speaking of kids, like you could make youth sports something that
I don't think that could happen.
Crazy.
Take place. You wouldn't miss church for practice or game, though, would you? That could never happen.
This household will not. But I mean, it's crazy how things that having sports and wanting your kids to be better and enjoy team sports is something that could be beneficial. You can even categorize it as we're spending more family bonding time as we're going on these trips and stuff. But ultimately, what do you worship more? And so I think of the single person who is looking to be married and wants a spouse and is feeling like, I don't have this gift of singleness that Paul talks about. I want something more. And it could potentially be making that an idol. Jesus mentions it in Matthew 10:37 that whoever loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. Whoever loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. And it's crazy when he's going into that because he's talking about that there's going to be strife and division sometimes with the faith that we have. But he's pointing it out that even something as good as your family, which is crazy because again, one of the commandments is honoring your mother and father. But he's sitting there saying that whenever you're putting anything, even something that is good over me, that it's not going to work out well for you.
God knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
Right? That feels like the family, when you say like good things can become idols, family feels like the untouchable one.
Yeah,
though, right?
kind of
Because,
does, yeah.
well, of course, like my kids and my wife, they're like everything to me. And I would struggle with like these feelings of like meaninglessness and all that stuff if that were to be taken away. But you're right that whenever God tells us like even those good things are not the ultimate thing, he knows what he's doing. So like the best way for me to give like the love and care for my kids and for my family that I think I want to give them is to do things the way that God says,
right.
is to put him at number one in my life. Because whenever our pastor has said many times, I love others best when I love God most.
Yep.
Like, that's the best thing that I can do for them. So God knows what he's doing. So it feels like weird to us. Like my natural reaction to that, even still, though I know it, is like, man, but my family, right? My family. But God knows what he's doing. And the way that I love them best is to have God be on the throne of my life above them.
I heard a guy once say that was going through some marriage stuff, and he's a good guy. And this has happened with good men all the time, and he was wanting his wife to be happy. He's wanting her to be happy.
Good luck. Kidding. Oh, it's great.
He was wanting her to be happy, and there's a part of that that's right. I mean, I want my wife to be happy. I want her to be pleased. I want her to be comfortable. I don't want her to have to worry. But he said, I can't let my wife's happiness be my idol. Mm-hmm. And so, because what you'll do is, if you're not very, very careful, is you'll do things that you don't need to do to try to be God when only God can be God in that particular area in her life. Right. Only God can meet that need. Same thing with our kids. We can try to meet every single need they have, every little problem they did. A failure that we made, I'm just as confessed as parents, is that we didn't let our kids fail enough. If they were struggling with they didn't turn in their project, or they came late the night before and said, "Oh, I've got to turn this thing in tomorrow," we didn't let them just turn in an F and get an F the next day. We'd stay up late with them and work with them. There's a time where failure needs to happen, and so I thought I was loving them by helping them, but sometimes I should have let them fail more.
Oh yeah, you should have been more like me, where I'm like, I just don't care. Life sucks sometimes. Get used to it, and then you rub some dirt on their face.
I like everything about that. Athletics for me was the one that helped teach my kid things. That you can work hard, you can struggle. There are going to be tough things that happen in your life, and if you set this up as achievement of a certain level is going to make you who you are. It's not the end; it's the process that changes you to who you are, makes you and shapes you into the are. But if you make this, guess what? When you get to the idol, it's not what you thought it was.
Right.
And I can say that, man, if you think you're going to get up on the top of this hill and it's going to achieve this peace and success, what you've set up is an idol. The only thing that can fulfill that need you have is your relationship with Christ.
Even Tom Brady, in an interview, I think he had only won like 3 Super Bowls at the time, but he was talking about he had the supermodel wife, all the money, all the fame, all the accolades, and was like, I just thought there would be more. Yeah. And so ultimately, as we're talking about all these idols that we have in their life, they are going to end up coming up short. And that's why God wants our attention on him. It's not because he's some selfish God who's just wanting all the attention. It's like, no, I'm telling you, I made you guys. I know what is going to be the most fulfilling thing in life, and that's when you worship what is meant to be worshipped, and that's me and me only.
Think about listening to this. You hear even as the World Championships come up in basketball and the Super Bowl and the NFL, and they ask the guy, and he says, "It hasn't sunk in yet. You just want to see how's it feel. It hasn't sunk in yet." Well, because that's it.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's nothing more. This thing that you thought was so valuable, if I just have this, then I'm going to be at peace. No, you're not. Right. Because we're not complacent in anything but our relationship with Christ.
Right. They overpromise and underdeliver every single time.
Yeah.
Right. I think it's interesting, even in the Old Testament, and Jeff, you kind of talked about how it was both, right? They had like the physical idols and these other things too.
You were there is why we're asking.
That's why. But I think it's interesting because it feels like also extremely relevant, like the physical idols they would worship. So I think of like Joshua when he's coming to the end of his life, whenever he's like giving like his kind of like final address to like the Israelites, he basically tells them, hey, choose who you're going to serve. And he gives them the options. He says, hey, here's who you can serve. You can serve the gods of your ancestors, like the gods of like your upbringing. You can serve the gods that like of the land of the people you live in right now, like the gods of the culture, basically, or you can serve the one true God. And I think it's so relevant to us because for them, when he's talking about serve the gods of the culture, it would have felt so normal to them because that's what everybody's doing. Mm-hmm. So it's easy to kind of mix the two together, right? Where we can do both. I'm going to serve like the one true God, but also I'm going to let the gods of the culture kind of seep in there a little bit. And for us, I think when we think about some of the idols that we talk about, like family or like success and money, which are not bad things, but when we like, it's so commonplace in our culture to say, well, no, that's what life is about, right? So then it's easy for us to let that like creep in and not recognize that it becomes an idol.
It almost seems impossible to decouple that. What do you mean? What do you mean? Put aside my phone. What do you mean? This is taking too much. Don't you know this is how we operate?
Like, how do I exist in our world?
How do I exist in this world? But you're right, and that you contextualize it. That's exactly how they felt, right?
Right.
It wasn't that there were these just two obvious, one good and one bad, and they were able to just reject the bad. They were so intermingled.
Right. And it's so weird to talk about intermingling. I was actually studying in one of my quiet times this week about how it's like, okay, why did the people of Israel constantly go after Baal? And it was because of some of the similarities that Baal had with Yahweh. And then like they're looking for help. They're like, I'm just going to throw in a little extra. It's kind of like keeping one foot in the word and one in the world. Like, I'm going to hedge my bets on this. And so when they're doing it, it's a slippery slope that all of a sudden something becomes idolatrous and we didn't even realize it.
Yeah, it can happen. It can happen very, very easy. And then we can reject the idol, replace the idol. God shows himself faithful. And then another struggle comes, and we once more become unfaithful.
100%.
And we say, well, I know that idol. I know it didn't work last time, but I think it'll probably work this time.
Right.
Or I trust God that for meet all my provisions, but I'm going to make sure I have. And again, there's nothing wrong with being unwise about being good stewards.
Right.
Right. But there's this thing where we put our trust in these possessions and these things, and we know that they won't bring us value.
Right.
So we've talked around it a little bit, but I think it'd be good to like address it like just full on. We talk about all this stuff, and you mentioned like without even realizing it, that stuff. So how do we recognize this? How do I move from a place of like I know idols are bad, but how can I begin to recognize when I do have idols in my life? Like what are some practical ways that we can do that?
Oh, sure. Gladly. So this is a very practical way of looking. Matthew 6:21 where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. So a very practical way, what are you spending money on? Look at that. If you want to know, I can't remember who mentioned it, but basically said, if you were on trial for being a Christian, would you have enough evidence to convict you? And the first thing that they look at is like, are you tithing? Are you giving? Are you serving? What are you doing with your money? Where are you spending your time? Taking inventory of that is what I would say is the absolute first thing you should be looking at is, man, that could be an idol for you.
Yeah, man. They used to have these things called checkbooks. You guys know what checkbooks are? And so you would have this.
Heard of them.
It's this thing, this ancient thing, and you would write them on this language, antiquity, a language called cursive.
Oh, it doesn't exist anymore.
It does
Were
not
you counting
exist.
on your abacus?
I was not counting about, but you would have a check ledger, and it would show everything. And you can do a quick thing of, hey, this is where my treasure is and my heart is. What am I spending money on? What am I giving to? What am I sacrificing for? So we do need to take a personal inventory, right? And that's a great way to know when we have idols in our life.
Yeah, definitely. I have always thought about it as like how to identify idols are what are the things that I fear. Like fear losing maybe. And oftentimes I think your idols can be revealed in that of what do you fear losing most. But I read an article a while back, and it was or a little thing from J.D. Greer, I think it was, and he talked about. I remember I wrote these down. He talks about these. He takes it deeper and says we want to ask the question of what are the areas that my emotions become the most out of control. So when you think about your emotions, like your anger and fear would be a part of that, or feelings of like despair. What areas are my emotions the most out of control? So like some questions we could ask ourselves to kind of be in line with that is, what makes me panic whenever it's threatened? Like if something is threatened to be removed, what makes me like, what do I panic over? Or what makes me angry if I don't get my way, if I don't get it? Or what makes me like feel like there's no purpose if I were to lose it, which you kind of said earlier. Or this is one of the, I think, biggest ones is what am I willing to sacrifice obedience in order to keep and to hold on to?
Ooh, that last one's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. What am I so scared about losing that I would rather be disobedient to God than to lose it? That would certainly be an idol, right?
Oh, I would have to agree.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't
Any
wanna-
other thoughts on that one?
I don't want to contribute because then it's like, oh,
That's
there
a-
are lots of things like, man, I don't know. I'd like to compromise on this.
What a brilliant observation! But because what we do is we would change the way we think about it to kind of sterilize our sin.
Yeah.
And say, well, I'm only doing this because I need to provide for my family, or I'm only doing this so that I can keep my position. If I don't have my position, I can't provide for my family. So this little Saul compromise, certainly God understands. But what I've done is I've made that job. So those that animate our feelings the most are things that we need to. I believe that could be said in the inverse as well. So perhaps I'm moved most when I read God's word. And so there's going to be these two polar opposites when I move toward Him. But these things where I have emotions that I fear losing that. That's a sign that it's an idol.
Yeah, I'm glad. I like that you flip it to of the inverse of like that I move the most when I'm in the Word of God or something, because then that gives us, I think, the good closing like answer for us. Then it's just like everything we say. It's not this, but instead it's replace it with this. So it's not just like, man, I'm just going to try harder for these things to not be idols. Well, instead is the way I defeat idolatry is by seeing Jesus as better. Whatever it is just Jesus is better, and seeing everything through that lens.
What an oversimplistic answer. And we don't want to, I don't want it to come across that way, but it's truly these things that you have, they're false idols. And which God offers us is better.
Infinitely.
It's better to be in His presence. The friends that you think, I'm thinking of youth people, the friends that you think you're going to lose, He's going to give you better friends.
Yeah.
And they're going to be grounded in something that it's more real. It's not fake. It's not pretend, because it's real. These things, these possessions you think that you value the most, that you really want. Let me just tell you, those things, those don't last. They never do. And He offers us indeed something better.
Yeah, and not just friends, relationships as well. That boyfriend or girlfriend, or that you're obviously not spouse. Got to stick with that one. Bad choice on your end.
Yeah.
But no, like seriously, it's crazy. God will always reward with something better. And when we are focused on Him, and that is the goal, and bringing Him glory, knowing Him and making Him known, it's crazy how all of it will work out.
All things work together for good. Seek Him first is all we have to do.
Yep. And then, hey, wherever you're listening, thank you for listening. Down in the description or in the bio, there's a link there that says Win Sports World merch. So if you would like to maybe be the lucky winner of some free Sports World merch, then you can click the link there, fill out just a little bit of information, and you might be one of the lucky winners of some Sports World merch.
Peace.